Hello everyone! Welcome back and thanks for joining me. Do you notice something different about my background today? I'm not at my house, I'm at school. It's a little quiet and empty and dark here without all your smiling faces, but I'm glad to be back because there's lots of work to be done before next year. Today we're going to continue learning about density. You'll remember that density is essentially how heavy or light something is in comparison to another thing. Let's see if we can compare some items. This empty plastic dinosaur egg isn't very dense. It's super lightweight, it doesn't weigh very much, and it does not have very much density. This shape is made of wood and it's a lot heavier. They're about the same size, but this one has a lot more density than the green one. Still confusing, I know. Let's try to explain another way. All objects have really tiny particles called molecules in them. Molecules make up everything in the world. They make up you and me and everything around us. But they're so tiny that we can't see them. So let's think about two objects that are both made of molecules. To imagine our molecules, we're going to use some tiles. This object has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 molecules in it. Can you see the 8 molecules in this object? This object of the same size has a lot of molecules in it. Because this object has so many more molecules than this object, this one is a lot heavier. Even though they're the same size, this one is heavier. And that is why this one has more density. So let's think about our experiment yesterday. Some things floated in water, other things didn't float in water. Which of these two objects would be likely to float in water? You're right, this one. It has less density, and so it is likely to float in water. Which one is likely to sink in water? You're right, this one, because it has more density. It would likely sink to the bottom of our water. Is that still confusing? It's okay. Today we're going to make a rainbow density jar to continue exploring what we know and what we can learn about density. Not only objects, but also liquids have lots of different densities. The question we're asking in this experiment is what will happen when we put different kinds of liquid in one jar? If we put together a liquid that is more dense, it would sink to the bottom. And if we put it with a liquid that is less dense, that liquid would be at the top. Before we get started, get out your science journal and write down a prediction of what you think will happen once we start this experiment. And then don't forget to stop and make observations all throughout as we finish each step. You can do this experiment with lots of different liquids that you find around your house. So this is just what I've found, but you can experiment with lots of different liquids in your house. The first thing you'll need is a jar, a clear jar, or a tall cup or vase. You'll also need some food coloring or liquid watercolor, some water, and then a variety of liquids, whatever you would like to test out and see what has different density. I'm using dish soap, some oil, honey, and rubbing alcohol. You'll also need some cups or jars and something to mix with. If you have a dropper at home, that would be helpful. If you don't, you can just use a regular spoon. Okay, First up, we are going to mix up our colors. Get out enough jars for all of your different liquids and pour a little bit of each liquid into each jar. Next, add different color food coloring to each liquid. Here I'm adding blue to the dish soap, red to the rubbing alcohol, and orange to the oil. Sometimes science doesn't work the way you think it's going to. I forgot that water-based watercolor will never mix with my oil. So I tried to color it orange, but it won't work. That's okay. We've got some oil with orange bubbles in it. Last, I'm going to add both blue and red food coloring to my water to make a nice purple color. Now we've got all of our liquids colored. What do you think will happen? Now we're ready to start layering. Be careful to pour all of your liquids into the center of your jar. Try not to touch the sides with any of the liquids as you pour them in. This will make a cleaner rainbow in your jar. Stop and make an observation of what you see happening. So, when you get to your rubbing alcohol, if that's what you're using, you want to stop and be really, really careful with how you add it. I'm going to add it with a dropper. But if you don't have a dropper at home, you can hold a spoon carefully at the top layer of your liquid and pour your rubbing alcohol onto the spoon so that it creates a nice layer at the top of your rainbow jar. This part's a little tricky, but if you pour it straight into the middle, then it will mix with all the other things. Once you've layered all of your colored liquids, you're finished. Just be sure to screw the lid on really tight so that it doesn't get messy anywhere on accident. And that's all there is to it. How cool is your rainbow density jar? Now that you know so much about density, why do you think the layers stay separate instead of mixing together? You're right. All the different liquids have different densities. That means the honey on the bottom is the most dense, so it sinks to the bottom. And the rubbing alcohol on the top is the least dense, so it floats to the very top. Bye, friends!